Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Sharon Brooks with Price Associates. I'd like to welcome you to our webinar on Are You Finding the Best Talent? Our guest speaker today is Tricia Neves. Good afternoon, Tricia.
Good afternoon.
Thank you
How are
so
you?
much. Oh, I'm fine, thanks. How are you? How is sunny San Diego?
Sunny San Diego is very beautiful today. Thank you.
I bet. Thank you so much for being with us.
Of
I'd
course.
like to tell the audience a little bit about you. Tricia is president of Hiring by Design and a recruiting and selection specialist. She and her company handle all phases of hiring and selection. They teach people how to select, attract, and retain the best talent for their organizations. Tricia also creates and delivers personal development courses for employees to help them increase their skills and their value to their companies. Over the past 15 years, Tricia has been using TTI assessments exclusively as a part of her selection and recruiting practice. Before I turn the webinar over to Tricia, I wanted to let you know that we will be taking questions at the end of her presentation today, so please feel free to use the question feature in your GoToWebinar control panel. Just type in your questions and I will be monitoring those. So, Tricia, I'll turn the webinar over to you now.
Thank you so much, Sharon. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about who this webinar would be really beneficial for. Of course, if you're doing any recruiting for your organization, you'll get a lot of valuable information here regarding that and how to use the assessment tools that I've been using in your recruiting strategy. For the hiring managers that are really looking for better ways to identify and match talent to the job, not just to hire somebody for skills and experience, but also really how to look at the innate talent that the job needs and that the candidate will bring so that you have a more effective match. And of course, anyone in the C-suite who is also looking for ways to maximize the talent matches or the job matches within the organization. So there we go. I was having a little trouble here with my mouse. So for starters, I'm going to talk a little bit about today's recruiting challenges. 90% or more of recruiting today is done online. And all of the material that you are sourcing in that recruiting strategy most of it is written by the candidate themselves. So you're really looking at great marketing and PR, sometimes not so great marketing and PR, that the candidate is actually generating and then posting online. And you really have no way of verifying the veracity of the talent material that they're posting up on their resumes. Applicants are applying for multiple jobs. As you know, it's so easy now with the click of a mouse for me to apply or to post a resume on multiple sites for multiple jobs, whether they applied, directly to my talent base or not. The long-time job seekers are applying for related jobs. So what I mean by that is if I have a lot of sales experience, for example, and I see an ad for a sales manager, well, I might apply for that, even though I have absolutely no management experience. Or if I have sales experience in a retail setting, I go and apply for an outside sales position having no experience in that area. But yet, again, it's so easy to post my resume, I'm going to go ahead and apply for any related job. The unqualified applicants who have been out in the marketplace for a really long time, they're going to apply for everything. And they're going to post resumes with objectives that have nothing to do with the job that they're applying for. And it's up to you, the recruiter, or you, the hiring manager, or whoever it is that's doing the sourcing inside your organization to go through all of those resumes and determine how many of them are actually applicable to the job that you are looking to fill. It takes an average of 8 weeks to recruit and hire a new employee if everything goes well. So during that time, you are reading resumes, looking for to schedule interviews with the people that you're reading their resumes for, and then you're walking them through all of the interview process within your own organization. So sometimes 8 weeks is even a conservative estimate as to how long it takes to actually get somebody in the door. And then once they're hired, it can take up to 90 days for that new hire to really show promise or not. those first 30 days are spent basically just learning how the office works, right? So we can manage, we can actually shorten a lot of these time frames using the tools that I'm going to talk about today. So let's talk a little bit about those costly hiring biases. Now, biases are like blinders, hence the photograph. They don't really allow us to see what we don't know. One of the hiring biases that I see a lot is a reactive approach. This thought was perfect for the job. They start working, they don't work out, you get rid of them, and you say, okay, now let's hire somebody that's completely the opposite of that person. So that's that knee-jerk reaction to effective hiring or ignore. Unrealistic specifications, looking for that ultimate superhero, right? This is what
I think we might be experiencing some issues with the sound. Tricia, are you there?
viewing, and that can then overshadow your ability to be really realistic about what the talent looks like in that person. The just like me bias is when you hire somebody based on somebody else's talent. So that would be something like hiring somebody that came from the same college as a top performer in your company, or hiring somebody who's just like you. If you're a hiring manager and you're looking for somebody to do to report to you, you go and you look for somebody that reminds you of you at one point. I've talked to a lot of clients who have done that sort of thing in the past. Then we have some hidden and uncalculated costs, or uncalculated costs that a lot of companies overlook or bury, and they don't consider them in looking at the company's bottom line. So the first one is to fail to really determine the real cost of hiring. How much time does it really take for you to bring somebody onto your organization? Things, for example, the recruiter's time. And if you don't have an internal recruiter, who is the hiring manager that is spending the time looking for those candidates? Are you subscribing to any databases, any resume databases? These are very, very expensive. Are you posting online multiple job postings over and over and over again? And while you're doing all these things, you're not doing your job. If you're not a recruiter, if you're a hiring manager, what are you failing to do in order to do this? Accepting turnover as normal. I can't tell you how many times over the past 15 years I've heard companies say this. Hiring managers or C-level people are saying, well, turnover is just normal. We should just expect that and build that into our bottom line. Well, what we know is that 80% of turnover is caused by bad hiring decisions. So, and this comes in a variety of different forms. It's not just the resume that wasn't vetted properly, or the interview did not pull information that was essential for you to determine that that person was not a match, or just looking at their talent match and only focusing on skills and experience. The cost to replace an hourly employee can be up to 400 times their hourly wage. So that's a huge number right there. And of course, during those first 90 days I was talking about before, you're spending that money not knowing whether or not the person is really going to perform after they get over that first getting to know you period. The cost to replace a manager can be 150% of their salary. Another huge number, right? the cost of the disengaged worker. Now, this cost in particular is buried. You rarely see it until you start actually managing the problem. You know, Fortune magazine releases a list of the 100 best companies to work for every year, and the employee reviews about the companies with the lowest turnover is consistent. There are people that love what they do, who are matches for their job, where their managers really see them and really manage them effectively. So when you have a disengaged worker, it can cost the company billions of dollars, literally. This quote I have up here from Gallup Research, this is fairly recent. They do ongoing research on disengaged workers, so this is a problem that's ongoing. And then, of course, we have the cost of the rotten apple. So this is the person that is disengaged, dissatisfied, and they want to get agreement from their team and from their group that whatever it is that they're upset about is valid. So they want to have they're going to have a negative effect on the other people that work with them. So now I'm going to talk about the two approaches that I use in recruiting and selection, and that I've been using, like Sharon said earlier, for the past 15 years, using TTI assessment tools to identify the talent needed and find the candidates that have the talent match. So this is the first area that I start looking at before I read a resume, before I even talk to the candidate. I'm focusing only on the talent match, and I worry about the level of experience and skill set after all of this. So job matching and TTI assessments involves identifying what the right talent for the job really is. And we're going to measure that quality or that talent quality. And then we're going to assess candidates after we source them, after we review their resume, and after we interview them. Or we can use Talent Management Plus, which is a screening tool, which I'll talk about in more detail in a minute. It's powered by TTI assessments. It identifies the matches and talent to the job, and it's to be implemented as a part of the sourcing phase. So one happens after you sourced and you reviewed resumes, and the second version or the second option is to be implemented with your sourcing. So let's talk about the first one, the matching, the job matching using the job benchmarking system. So the job benchmarking system that TTI has developed and patented is a system where subject matter experts identify key accountabilities for the position. They complete an analysis tool of 55 job-related factors, and the result is a job benchmark report that ranks the talent factors needed for peak performance in the job. There are behavioral interview questions in that report that you can use in your job interview to determine whether or not the candidate that you're looking at has the talent that you're looking for, and then you would make the decision to assess them at that point. The beauty of this process is that it really builds consensus within the organization. One of the most common reasons why there's ineffective hiring is that quite often the decision makers in an organization disagree as to what talent is needed in order to do the job. So this process builds consensus within the organization. Everybody's on the same page as to what talent they're looking for. And the beauty is that it provides you these interview questions that are specifically created to glean the talent that you're looking for in the individual. So all of the questions are fashioned around the top talent traits that the benchmark has assigned as being the most significant and the most important in the job. Once you have that job benchmark, you can include the high-ranking job-related talent factors in your ad. You're also going to include the key accountabilities in the job description. So now we have a manageable job description. It's not going to be a 2 or 3 page exhaustive list that is looking for the superhero, but you're really having the key accountabilities that you've determined in that process in your job description. They're going to be very succinct and to the point, and they're really focusing on the results that you want that person to accomplish in the job. Then you're going to utilize those interview questions from the job benchmark report to identify the desired talent traits that you want in the candidate. And then once you've selected the candidates that answer those questions well, you're going to assess them, and the assessment is going to tell you what the talent gap is between the candidate and the benchmark. And then you can make a decision as to whether or not that talent gap is a manageable talent gap or whether that's going to disqualify the candidate from moving forward in the process. We use what we call an enhanced ideal candidate form. It not only has the job description, the working environment, the educational requirements. These are all things that I'm sure most of you already look for or make a note of. But we use those pre-employment assessments as a part of that process. So in our ideal candidate form, all of the top talent traits that we're looking for are listed. And of course, we also ask the hiring managers for their deal breakers, like, education, industry experience, and all that kind of thing. So when the candidate is applying for the benchmark position, they're going to complete an assessment which measures their talent in the same 55 factors that you measured in the benchmark itself. So 25 personal skills, what are the capacities that they bring to the job? 6 motivators, or why they do the job, what are the passions that drive them? 12 behavioral traits, or how they will do the job. And lastly, 12 acumen indicators. So the individual that's applying for the position takes an assessment, which takes them about 40 minutes, and that assessment is going to give us the talent composite of the candidate themselves. Then we take those talent factors and we compare them to the job benchmark in something called a gap report. And that gap report is going to show us where the gaps are, and like I said before, whether or not they're manageable, trainable, etc. The result, of course, is that you get the best talent match for the job, because now it's based on the science of talent measurement. If you anticipate having a large volume of responses to an ad that you're posting, I've talked to clients who sometimes they post an ad and they get 700 responses or applications, then the Talent Management Plus system may be the best option for you. So we use TMP or Talent Management Plus when we are anticipating a large volume of candidate applications. It is a proprietary assessment system created by TTI. It has the assessments that I've just been talking about embedded in it. It's ideal for handling a high volume of applicants because it sorts for you the talent matches to the benchmarks that are posted in there. So you'd still go through that same job benchmarking process, but now you're going to put the benchmark inside of TMP, and you're going to drive the candidates to TMP to take their assessments, and then TMP ranks their match to the benchmark for you. It's also ideal for redeployment, so for companies that are very large and that hire from within or move people within the organization, it's a great way to assess everybody on staff and have their assessments sitting in there for when you have a new job available. You can compare people to that particular benchmark. So you can store multiple benchmarks. There's no limitation, and there's no limitation as to how many people you can assess inside the system. You can put pre-qualifier questions into TMP. So for example, If you have an ad posted on Career Builder or Monster or Ladders or whatever it is that you post your ads, you can put a code into the ad that drives people to the system. Inside the system, you can put additional pre-qualifier questions. So for example, I always like to interview my candidates on Skype. So I make sure that they're set up for that. So I put something in there like, you're going to be asked to interview on Skype. Are you available to do so? You know, sometimes people don't have a camera, things like that. TMP ranks the talent for you before you read the resume. Now, this is really important for those recruiters that are reading hundreds of resumes per job. The average recruiter is reading 100, sometimes up to 400 resumes for one position. So what this system does for you is it ranks the talent matches first, and then you read those resumes, not the resumes that, not all of the resumes that are applying. It is EEOC and OFCCP compliant. If you don't know what OFCCP is, it's the Office of Federal Contract Compliance Programs. It's part of the U.S. Department of Labor. If you do any contracts with government, I think at a minimum of $50,000, any assessment tool you use in your hiring process needs to be compliant with the OFCCP. And of course, it's going to diminish hiring bias and increase retention because now you're hiring people who are actually matches for the job. In addition to recruiting, TMP is a complete talent management system. It not only screens the individual against the benchmark, but it also provides coaching reports, gap reports, performance management tools. The assessment results can provide really great information for any kind of performance reviews that you do. So the assessments that are provided through the system have a long shelf life. It's not just for hiring. So Sharon mentioned earlier that I use these tools exclusively in my practice, and these are the reasons why, or some of the reasons why I only use TTI tools. First of all, TTI has that patented job benchmarking process which minimizes bias, builds consensus, and really adds science to the hiring process. Trimetric system is the name of the system of the tools that we're using. So the job benchmark and the talent measurement system that we're using comes under that Trimetrics banner, and it is the only one of its kind in the world. It accurately measures the talent of the job and the candidate in the same areas. There are a lot of companies out there that claim to do benchmarks, but the benchmarks are typically done either by an individual, not inside your company. This system brings the consensus within your organization because it's actually the organization itself that's creating the benchmark, and then we can measure the candidate in those same areas. We can accurately predict performance. This is a huge win for the hiring manager who is, again, keeping their fingers crossed during those first 90 days to make sure that the candidate they hired is really going to work out. So we can predict performance and offer that complete talent management and development support that can be used inside the organization long term. The assessments are incredibly valid and accurate, and TTI continually validates assessment results worldwide. These assessments are being used currently in 90 countries in 40 different languages. So you can see how we have a broad database of validity and accuracy. We do have statistical data that shows that we have a 92% retention rate over a period of 12 months when we're using this system to place individuals in organizations. And of course, we're saving organizations thousands, if not tens of thousands of dollars in the hiring process. So, questions?
If you have any questions, feel free to type them into the GoToWebinar control panel. I have a couple for you, Tricia. The first question we have is, I've heard the term benchmarking before from companies who also provide assessments. What differentiates you from them?
In part, what I was saying earlier is that the job benchmarking process that TTI has patented is a process that's done in conjunction with the organization's subject matter experts. So this process is a process that is facilitated with the stakeholders or subject matter experts that are most familiar with the job, and it's actually they who complete the assessment and rank the talent. It's not me who tells the organization what talent that they need.
Great, thank you. Another question, how long does the job benchmarking process take?
Well, optimistically, it takes between an hour and a half and 2 hours. And I say optimistically because depending on when I'm brought into an organization, if there's a lack of clarity about the position, it can take a little bit longer. The longest benchmark I've ever done took 3.5 hours. So I usually tell the client to anticipate 3 hours. That's a pretty good average. It's something around that.
Okay, thank you. Here's another question. How can I learn more about TMP?
I have a video that I would be happy to send anyone that wants to learn more. It's a quick little video. It's about 5 minutes long. It gives you some screenshots of what the system looks like and also some detailed information on what it provides. And of course, I'm happy to answer any questions via email or a phone call if anybody would like to talk more.
Great, thank you. Well, it looks like that's all the questions that have come in for now, Tricia. So I
Great.
think we can let people go early today and get more work done, I guess.
That sounds good. Well, I want to thank everybody for their attention today and for coming on to the call. You have my contact information. I'm happy to have, a chat with anyone if you have any additional questions.
Great. Thank you so much, Tricia, and thank you everyone for attending our webinar today. Have a wonderful afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you.